Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E.
Hi everyone and welcome to the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne with an E. Today I'm very excited. I have my own personal hero, if I can say that, Ndoni Mcunu. Ndoni is a PhD candidate at Witwatersrand University at the Global Change Institute in South Africa. Also, she's the founder and the CEO of Black Women in Science South Africa, a registered non-profit organization which aims to deliver capacity development interventions that target young Black women scientists and researchers. So in this episode, she'll chat to us about her passions, mainly women development, education, and poverty alleviation in Africa. Like I said earlier, she is one of my own personal role models, and it's such a great honor to have her on the show. Hi, Ndoni, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me here, and I really appreciate being here.
Thank you so much again for taking the time to chat with me. So we're just going to dive right into it. Can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Okay, so I am currently doing my PhD at Wits University, and I am focusing on climate change and agriculture. I'm looking at ways in which we can make food production more better, or increase food production for our small-scale farmers and large-scale farmers in sub-Saharan Africa. So I'm focusing on an area called Zambia. And I then, through my interests in life generally, I founded a nonprofit organization called Black Women in Science, and it focuses on building capacity and skills amongst Black female postgraduate academics. I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal and in an area called Durban North, and yeah.
Oh, that's really interesting. So you're in your PhD now, but before you got there, the whole essence of the show is the roots of the science. So what actually made you get into the science, and how did this shape you to where you are now?
So my family is quite science-based. My uncle is a medical doctor, my aunt is a mathematician, my dad is in IT, and my granddad had a BSc in the times of apartheid, the generation of Mandela. So science is really something that, being unaware of it, was really a career option, not that it was shoved down my throat. But it was something that I was exposed to as a kid, not being aware really. And then I happened to travel with my aunt, Aunt Cornelia, at the PMB, Sidara. And because I grew up in a suburb area, I realized this beauty in nature. So Sidara is an agricultural institution, and I went there and we had a milkshake from the farm, and I really got to fall in love with just the natural state of the environment and to see it untouched, undeveloped, and unmoved, and I was more interested in understanding it.
Oh, that's very interesting. And I like how you state that your grandfather especially had a BSc during apartheid time, when, especially for Black people, that wasn't very common. So I think you had a really good foundation for you to be in the science. And when you decided to get into the science, was it something that started during high school and then you got into it? Was it an easy journey? Because I know for some people it's not always so easy.
Yeah, my journey was hell. I really wasn't good at mathematics. What had happened was I did an international schooling system called PACES. PACES are American system where you teach yourself these subjects, and I really struggled to teach myself subjects like maths and science, so I fell behind. Then because I was falling behind, my parents then decided to make me do homeschooling, and there I had to teachers come in and give me personal training on maths. But even though I was getting the personal training, I had all these gaps. So it was, to be honest with you, I don't think I've ever caught up to those gaps, but I've been able to understand what I need to understand to help me pass. And that's really the core of me. So I'm very sensitive around maths and science because I really did struggle to stay in the industry, and I really fought to stay in the industry of sciences. So it
That,
wasn't an easy journey, but it's doable.
it's doable. Wow, that's very interesting. And I like to you. So you didn't go to a normal traditional schooling system then, if I can ask that.
Yes, I did the normal IEB system, but via homeschooling.
Okay.
So school was registered under the government to so that we can write our matric certificates and we actually get examined. Otherwise, if the homeschool is not registered, then you can't write from home. So
Oh,
I
okay.
had to, yeah. So I had a normal. I wrote the exams, but I didn't have the conventional way in the sense of I'm waking up every morning and wearing the uniform
Yeah.
and going to a class and no, I was wearing casual clothes throughout my high school career life, not career, and
Hmm.
yeah, and then I it wasn't I didn't have big netball teams or swimming things. It was just homeschool. You go to school, you get those teachers come in to teach you those subjects, and you write your
Yeah.
exams. It was a deep boot camp. Yeah,
Oh, that's very interesting. I mean, I'm sure not a lot of people know this about you, and I think it's also it also goes to show that you don't need to go the conventional route, as you said, that it does not define on where you're going to be in life. So that's very, very important. And like you said earlier, you said that your passions are science and mathematics, which then delves into your own personal passions such as education and women empowerment. Um, could you just elaborate a little bit more into that, and also how that then went on for you to start your own NGO?
sure. So growing up in the science academic slash research field, I started to realize how the people that we were being taught by were not representative of us, of our color, of our
Mm,
skin, of our backgrounds, and it started to concern me. But the concern really didn't start from undergraduate level. It really started for me at a master's level more than anything. And why at a master's
okay.
level is because in South Africa, master's is a very isolated process and a PhD where it's just you and your supervisor or your co-supervisor. Very few of you no one really understands what you're trying to do except you and your supervisor. So it's very lonely. And
Mm,
I started to realize that no, man, I'd really like to get some kind of mentorship or support in this whole thing. I'm going to do my master's, but what am I going to be overqualified? Those kind of conversations that are going around about
yeah.
you being overqualified. You're not sure, am I overqualified? You're looking into your family. Nobody really has a master's, so they really don't know. You know what I mean? And so
Mm,
uh, I then decided to really assess why is it, I was at UKZN at the time doing my master's and starting my master's, and I realized that throughout my undergraduate degree to the level now in my master's, I've never been lectured by a black female. And I asked
okay.
myself, why is it that we're not getting lectured by a black female, especially in an institution like UKZN that has majority black students? And I said to
Mm,
myself, why is it that we are not being educated by people of our own? And what that does is it causes some kind of confusion in your own academic career. And number two, I would say I was a bit concerned about the fact that I'm almost falling into this degree. It's not something that I chose to do. It's not something that I said, you know what, today I want to do a master's degree. It's something that's like, oh, okay, well, I've done my master's and I've done my honors, and the next level is master's. I mean, I don't have any responsibilities. Let me just do that. Or I'm done with my master's. Let me do my PhD. And that's the challenge that we
mm,
have, is that we don't have the choice in doing research. So in those challenges, I realized that there's a missing link between research and the reality of research and understanding it as a career, and also the missing link of representation within the research and academic fields. So statistics like at UCT, there's only 15 black 15, not 15%, 15 black females that are professors at UCT.
Wow.
That's a ridiculous amount. So it shows that there is a real gap. And from that, I decided then let me start an organization called Black Women in Science. And in this organization, we provide them with these skills on understanding what is research in academia, how do you write an article, a journal article, what about if you want to actually get into the business of it, because we do feed into business of it as scientists. And how do you then communicate yourself as a scientist? Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So, like I said, that you come from this very science background that we've described, and then now you're venturing into being your own CEO of your own organization, which, like you said, it's not typical in science or in any form of academia. It's either you have to be an academic or you have to be in business. There's no ways about it. So you kind of doing both. So what, for people listening out there, what misconception about being a science academic, as you go on about doing science and being the CEO of your own organization, do you hope to bust? If I can say that, the misconceptions.
Sure. The misconception is that as a scientist, you can't think out of the box and you can't be in business. That's the first misconception.
Yeah.
The misconception is that sciences teaches you nothing about business, which is not true. The misconception is that scientists are not innovative enough or resilient enough to stay in business. I don't want to talk from a perspective as if I've made it. I want to really humble myself on that front, in that I'm still figuring it out. But one thing that this process has taught me is that we create these boxes for ourselves. The world of business does not everybody has a business degree that's doing business. Let's start there. You have people that literally just woke up and they had an idea. But as scientists, because we come from the mindset of we need to analyze and then we need to hypothesize or whatever, and then analyze and then come up with the results and conclusion and findings. We're not trained to think abruptly and think quickly. And so it's something where, but we are trained to be strategic, to plan, to manage project management, like managing my supervisor and also my career and my life. And, we are taught these skills as scientists to really analyze and understand a situation, but we just haven't put them in a business sense or really sold them in a business sense. So that misconception is quite sad. And the bust is that we can get into these careers of business if we are open enough to think like that we have something new to learn. So this new teaching, such as interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary learning, all of that learning is really beautiful, not only because we are saying that all these different experts must come together, but it's going to help us scientists to understand that, when I sit in the lab and I figure out a hair product, a chemical combination for a hair product, it actually gets sold. It's actually a business. It's just that I don't, that it goes to this extreme end. Do you know what I mean? So multidisciplinary is going to force us to sit with someone who's in business, or someone that's in economics, or someone that's in, engineering, and we all understand the full cycle of our scientific career or our ideas. And once we can see that beauty in that our ideas are marketable, you can sell them, you just need to have the next step. That's when these busts are actually going to change.
Wow, that's very, very true. People need to be more open. And with that being said, that you really are about the whole multidisciplinary approach. You've been on several panels. For example, you work with the Department of Science and Technology, and you were part of some roundtable discussions. And also most recently, you're also part of the African climate change activists for the media conference with Greta Thunberg, the climate activist, for those that don't know. why do you think being in these sort of spaces, like, how our Miss Universe says that we have to take up space, why do you think being in these sort of spaces is important for you as a scientist and also a Black woman in science?
It's very important because we have failed as scientists to be able to communicate our science in a very simple way and in a very understandable way. And because we can't explain it, no one is going to understand it. And I mean, can you imagine going to France and someone speaking to you in French and you're speaking Zulu? What's the point? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We need to understand each other. We need to understand what you're saying. The more people understand what you're saying and what you're doing, the more we market our own careers, So if the movement is for the fourth industrial revolution, businesses, people need to be more entrepreneurial, and we're not standing up as scientists and saying, if you're looking for innovation and entrepreneurship, innovation comes from science. We're gonna lose the ship. We're gonna lose the relevance of our careers. You know what I mean? And that's the challenge that we have. That we need to learn how to communicate our science, not just for funding issues, not just for market relevance, not just for expanding the knowledge of science and the career of science, but also for the young generation that's coming up, in the sense of someone really sitting down, things like, right now we're dealing with the coronavirus here in South Africa, and I'm thinking, where are the virologists? Where are the epidemiologists? Where are these guys that study immunology? And so these are the conversations we need to start having, in that maybe they're not taking up the seat because we don't really know what they're going to say. They haven't really marketed themselves right. And we need to have them in the forefront if you're able to communicate your science, because then these careers will be marketable. Because someone is going to sit at home and say, wow, I want to be a virologist one day. There was a coronavirus. My mom was sick here in my rural area, and a virologist told me that I need to wash my hands with soap and maybe wash her up, or whatever the case may be. And them explaining to me the nature of the disease has helped my family, and therefore I want to be a virologist. You know what I mean? There are things that we have as a responsibility. And so I always think about this example, in that Nelson Mandela and his generation had one fight, and their fight was to liberate and free Black people. That was their fight as the youth. Our generation, what is our generation? Our generation's challenge is to make sure that expert knowledge and careers that have limited numbers of Black people, we are seen and we are heard and understood in those careers. So it's very important that we do not take the baton of fighting for us to be able to fight for these kind of platforms, and then we don't use them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So these panels that I get to speak in are part of a responsibility in making sure that someone that is not used to seeing a Black female speak about climate change for the first time sees them and says, wow, I want to be a climatologist, so that our narrative can be told, So the less of us are in these spaces, the less of us get to have a voice in saying, no, in Africa, this is not the challenge. These are not the challenges we face as Africans in our continent. Nobody's talking for us. Everybody's talking above us. So it's very important that we take up these panels, we speak, we learn how to communicate, we learn the importance of different crowds and networks, and how to sell your idea to these different crowds.
No, that's very important. And I think you said something which, like you said, as Africans, we need to be able to put ourselves out there and, have people who are well informed, so that you don't have that misconception that they actually don't know that much. So when you are in those panels, like yourself, like how well you speak, they can be like, oh, okay, these Africans actually know what they're talking about, because there's that misconception that we actually do not know. And there's so many, like you said, so many experts out there. They just haven't been given the platform, or maybe they. I think that's another whole conversation. Like how to create these platforms for people to be visible, and for other younger generations to actually look up and be like, I want to be like Ndoni one day, or I want to be like the virologist, or etc., etc., etc. And with that being said, given where you are now in your career and where you aim to be in the future, did young Ndoni think she would actually be here? And for what advice would you give for somebody out there who's interested in STEM and they want to be where you are, if I can broadly say, like you said, you haven't made it, but obviously you've got plans on where you want to be. So what advice would you give somebody about that?
Uh, Young, no, I wouldn't have thought I would be here. Based on the facts of the challenge that I had with mathematics and how hard it was. So I actually didn't think I was going to be in science full time and doing my PhD. The advice that I would really give to anyone that's coming into the sciences, interested into getting into the sciences, would be you need to understand where you're going to end up. Start from the end. Don't start from the beginning. Start from the end. So if it's you're doing microbiology and you're going to end up in a lab, you must know that. If there's a lady that you admire that's not in a lab, you need to understand how she ended up not being in a lab. So my understanding is understand your relevance at the end when you say, you know what, now I've made it, and then understand the money that it comes to be with the end, and decide for yourself if this is actually the money that I want. Because once you decide on that, then it's going to push your drive to say, no, I don't want that money. I want to have more money, or I want to have less money. I want to be more impactful in my research, or I want to do whatever the reasons may be for your own ambition. But understand the money that you're going to get at the top of your career, how you're going to get there, and the person at the end of it, how did they get there? And it's very hard to find those people. I won't lie. So it's a whole lot of that game. And then also be sensitive to understanding where is your career changing to? You know what I mean? So if you were a virologist studying TB is a very important disease. It's great to do that. But then if you see that there's an increase in the coronavirus, study, be flexible to understand where do I need to shift, where do I need to adjust, where do I need to change so that I am never out of date, And also my last tip would be, do not lose association or communication with your friends from the business sector, your friends in the arts, your friends in the music sector, your friends in the humanities sector. Do not lose contact with those people. Constantly talk to them and open your mind to what's going on aside from your science.
Thank you. That is very, very effective advice. That we shouldn't be living in a tunnel that just because I'm a scientist, I should only be focused in a lot of science and only science. And we should communicate with the other people. Again, going back to the whole multidisciplinary approach. And Ndoni, thank you so much, so much for your time and for your advice. And I hope that for anybody out there who's listening and who wants to get involved in science, they've given like a broader picture in terms of saying that it doesn't only have to be like one straight road. You can do so many other various things, and you can be in so many different spaces. And like you said, that you just have to put yourself out there, networking and trying your best. So thank you again. And if people want to get hold of you, I will be able to put up your contact details on social media. So contact her if you have any further questions on her research or being part of BWIS. I am a BWIS fellow, and honestly, it's really changed my life. So I am very thankful for you starting that organization, Ndoni. So, and I hope that there's people out there who actually want to be a part of it, and I highly, highly recommend it. Again, to everybody listening, thank you again for taking the time to listen, and until next time, it's the Roots of the Science podcast with your girl, Anne, with an E.